Hello, hello, hello. This is SoulTalk broadcasting from Tzfat, the holiest city in the world, at least mystically speaking, and the source of great light to the whole world. First of all, we want to thank our dear sponsors, Pack and DeVinci family, for really supporting so much Torah around the world and helping so many people here in Tzfat and supporting Torah from Tzfat, really people that understand the value of Torah and the value of Judaism and Jewish mysticism and how it can transform our lives. And that's what this class is actually about. You see, we're coming up to Chof Cheshvan, coming up soon, which is the Yartzeit, the day of the passing of the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab was unique in the Jewish world in founding what's called Temchet Tmimim, a school in which the study of Jewish mysticism is part and parcel of the curriculum. Most yeshivas, their curriculum is actually the Gemara. The curriculum is Talmud mainly, obviously some Jewish law. But here, 3 hours a day was focused on the study of Chassidus. Now, not only was there a focus on Chassidus, there was also a focus on growth. That's what Judaism is all about. My uncle, Rabbi Yossi Goldman, he said that his grandfather, the great Chassid Yochanan Gordon, he once visited his grandfather in the hospital, and his grandfather kind of was being visited by the mashgiach, which is the kosher supervisor of the hospital. And the kosher supervisor quite proudly was standing on his tippy toes, and he said, "Shoin zibimol" in Yiddish, that's already 7 times. So he saw his grandfather was fuming, and the guy left, and he says to his grandfather, "Grandfather, tell me, what's the story? Why are you so upset?" He said, "You know what he just told me? He said that he finished the Talmud 7 times. Now, that's a tremendous accomplishment to finish the Talmud once." So he said, "Why are you upset?" He said, "What did the Talmud teach him?" So you see, my dear friends, the goal of this world was always one thing, which is growth. It says, man is like a tree of the field. Every person is able to continuously grow. And so this great rabbi was not impressed by somebody who studied a lot, because he saw that the study didn't influence him. In fact, maybe even hurt him, because it added to arrogance. As in fact, it says in the Talmud, if you study the Talmud and it causes you to be arrogant, it's like poison. Torah is here to teach us how to grow and how to love and how to become a better person. In fact, Chassidus is here to teach us how to be humble by showing us how great God is and really how small we are. So this is life. Now, it's an interesting dichotomy, because you can say, well, the whole idea is to be humbler. So why did God give us the ego in the first place? In fact, there was once a mechanism that I used. I was able to get rid of the ego, but I had to bring it back because I had no drive. And that's the answer. You can't say like, well, if, energy, I'm just going to say this, I'm not saying it's true, it's not good. Why use it? Well, you need to use it. But the thing is, you shouldn't abuse it. And the same thing is in life. Everything in life has this kind of twist between using and abusing. When you're using it, it is a good thing. When you're abusing it, it is a bad thing. And even the other way, if somebody is using you, I don't know, they need help, that's good. If they're abusing you, then it's not good. And that's what we call, in the Kabbalistic terminology, das. So there's what's called chesed. Chesed is love and kindness and giving. And then there's gvura, which is like, no, this is not going to happen. This is not okay. And then there's das and tiferes, which is okay. Like this guy comes from a city where there were a lot of, if I can call them, users and abusers. And being wealthy, people would often ask him if they needed money. They weren't just ripping him off. And his initial gut response was like, what's the guy trying to scam me? And then he said, I'd have to think to myself, no, he's not trying to scam me. He actually just needs money. He needs my help here. And so sometimes in life we're like all lovey-dovey. Sometimes we're actually the opposite, which is like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to get to me. Nobody's going to scam me. But that's also not right, because not the whole world doesn't want to scam you. There are some people that might want to scam you, which is a tragedy that they've lost their dignity and they're ready to scam people. But there are other people that genuinely need your help. And I want to say something as a person that a few people come to for help. 90% of the time, I'm not saying 100% of the time, but 90% of the time, hi, how are you? When people come to you for help, they really need the help. Listen to what I'm saying. 90% of the time when people come to you for help, they're not trying to scam you. A person that's humbled himself to this point, like today, I'll just give you an example. I put on film with someone. He actually asked me to come put on film with him. And afterwards, he's like, "Do you have any money?" And I happen to know the guy. And I know the last thing he wants is to have to ask me for money. He has a store and the store was robbed and a whole story. But the point is that what's my response? My response is not, oh, first you asked me for tefillin and now you ask me for money. No, my response is, I'm going to help you. And I didn't give him a fortune of money, but I gave him some money, something. At least he has some money. And that's the thing is like sometimes in life where like everything somebody says is true. It's not always true. Sometimes it is a scam. But 90% of the time when a person's coming to you and asking you for help, they really need that help. They're not putting themselves in the position of vulnerability unless they really need that help. I'll say this also to men, sometimes it's easy to help a stranger because it doesn't take that constant commitment. But let's say your wife comes to you, who's she going to come to? She's not comfortable going to a random person. She's not asking a random person. So sometimes you're like, oh my God, again and again and again and again. Well, yeah, who are they going to go to? They have to go to you. You are the provider. That's the person they have to go to. So you have to look at it like, well, maybe I would be the person in need. Well, thank God I'm the person on the giving end of the stick. It's not fun to be on the receiving end of the stick. It's a lot worse. In fact, there's a story where once I think it was the Rebbe Marashi there was a city and there were poor people there and the wealthy people could have been giving more. So he said that, God shows this world. In fact, this story with Rabbi Akiva where somebody once said to Rabbi Akiva, if God, loves the poor, why doesn't he feed them? He said, well, God wants us to be saved from hell. In other words, God created a world. He didn't need there to be poor people. Look at ants. Most of the animals, everybody's okay. They don't need charity from one another. Why are there poor people? And again, I've said this before, it's a mistake in the conservative thinking, which generally I'm a conservative, but it's a mistake in the conservative thinking of this concept, well, everybody has to work. Well, God says there will never be not a poor person until the coming of the Mashiach. Hopefully that's today. As well as economics say there will always be a percentage of the population without work. It's the way it is. And so thank God if you have money, that's a great gift. And you should be able to happily share that money because that's God's gift to you. There are even stories where there's an individual who, I don't remember the exact details of the story, but something to the effect that he was a wealthy person and he was a poor person that wanted, I guess he was offering, was a shmek tabak. In the olden days, like giving out a tobacco snuff was a big thing. So he had a nice golden one. And as he was going towards, I think it was his daughter's wedding, and he was like offering, and this poor person comes and is like, can I have? And like the rich person was a little bit like I don't know, insulted, like, oh, you want from the fancy one? And he took out his unfancy one to give him. And because the poor person was hurt, this created what's called a din, a judgment, negative judgment against him. In fact, the wealthy man's wealth ended up going to the poor person. And later he came to a Rebbe, and the Rebbe, knowing things in heaven, he said, well, the only way you're going to get it back is if this person somehow is mean to you. It's like reverses the cycle. He tried whatever he could, but the person was so kind that he was always giving. He said, and then eventually he told him the story. He said, oh, wow. And then he took this guy in and he supported him for the rest of his life. So we see how, it's not a random thing if somebody comes to you asking you for help, to really be compassionate. Really, we have to be compassionate in life. And compassion begins at home. Again, it's sometimes easier to help people that are strangers. They're going to come to you with dignity. But people that love you or know you, they might come with expectations. Mitzvot. I said, Laila Tov. את הבת של... מי האמא שלך?
אמא שלי זה רחלי.
אוקיי.
היא לא עובדת. סבא שלי זה מיכאל תרדי, אתה מכיר?
מיכל? לא.
מיכאל, לא
מיכאל תרדי. אפשר אני מכיר בפנים, אבל אני לא מכיר את ה... כן. הוא עובד כאן?
כן.
טוב, הוא...
My name is Yael.
What's your name?
Yael.
Yeah. How old are you? בת כמה את?
8.
ילדה טובה, צדקניה. את רוצה משהו לשתות או משהו?
לא, אני יודעת, אני מכיר אותה.
מכיר, גם את חמודה. טוב. Tada,
Thank you.
tada. You're welcome. You're welcome. So, in any event, so the point is to always have a sense of compassion, and to be in that state of compassion, even to the people that are closest to you, and and to really like not to try not to be too troubled. When we're troubled and we're in a state of constriction, it's very hard for us to be in a state of openness and compassion. And there are only three ways to be in a state of openness. The first is to quite literally, you have to take care of your body. You have to eat healthy, you have to sleep, you have to hopefully make money. It's a gift of God, but do what you can. Because these are things, like say what you want, but if a person's, worried about the bills, or they don't have good food, or they don't, they're not sleeping, it's hard to be a human being. You can't just function. And the other thing is, ironically, exercise and drinking water, the two most underrated things in the world, because exercise gives us a lot of energy and drinking water gives us a lot of energy. Those are the two greatest gifts that God has given us, exercise and water. And a lot of us are lacking those gifts. And last but not least, it's really understanding that life is about giving, because if life is about taking, then somebody that needs from me is kind of taking from me. But if life is about giving, then there is no lack. There is no lack in this world, because, giving is like an amazing opportunity. You can always give. You can give a hug, you can give a smile. There's always what to give in this world. And so to conclude, one of the greatest things that we can give is the teachings of Chassidus, the teachings of Torah, because this is the true water for the soul. It gives people truth. Unfortunately, some naive people voted in a terrorist. That's what the guy is. He's a terrorist, a supporter of Hamas, a supportive person that kills Jews, and Jews are voting them in. He thanked the Pack family. So, one of the crazy ideologies supporting, I don't know, some other thing. So, one of the family members wrote that his mother, their great grandmother, or the grandmother of the family, a great lady, her name was Maria da Vinci. So he said that I think he said his father, the husband of Maria, or maybe it was Maria, said that she remembered Jews. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. Carefully. Jews who voted for Hitler. Hitler could have not gotten power. Now, we're not blaming the Jews. Obviously, most Jews were smart enough not to vote for him. But some of them were not. I met a guy, he came to our Chabad house in Kansas City. His grandfather was a parliament member of the Reichstag. There were 9 Jews when they actually voted him in for, and to be fair, there were threats of violence if you didn't vote. But in the actual vote, people, guy can't be that crazy, can't be anti. No, he is that crazy. He does say what he means. He said very clearly, I opened my conf. He said, we have to take over countries because they're not going to give us their Jews. We have to take over the countries to kill the Jews. He said it clearly. I have a friend who's made many videos on the terrorism. He says, never has there been an enemy that's been clear in its goals. Hamas says they want to kill all Jews. We have a guy that supports the murder of all Jews as the New York mayor, voted in by Jews. So if this bothers you and there's something you want to do, I actually do know the techniques of what to do. You're welcome to reach out to me. Go through my website, KabbalahWisdom.org. But it's very serious because, Aristotle said big problems come from small problems. And humbly, Zevi says, huge problems come from big problems. We don't have a small problem. We have a catastrophic problem. When people are voting in, literally, as my wife said, they voted in Hitler. That's what they did. When they vote in these people, obviously the guy's going to smile. He's not an idiot. He wants your vote. When Hamas, when ISIS are supporting the mayor, you've got a problem, a huge problem. And so unless we do something, and now's the time, it's not too late. The enemies are the mayor. All of Europe, all of London, what I heard is that every single mayor is Islamic. It's just a matter of time before they take over that army, and then they will repress. They'll start to, people that say negative things about Islam will be put in jail now. This is crazy stuff. What's going on? So Islam has, through the help of Obama, may his name be blotted out, has brought the terrorists, is what this guy is, brought in these people educated to hate Jews into the country. And foolish, naive Jews are voting for them because, quote unquote, they are the liberators. Right? Hitler was the liberator of Germany, right? But turns out he didn't care about Germany. he cared about killing Jews. And they're the same. They don't care about one another. They don't care about themselves. They just care about hurting Jews because that's their faith and tradition, and that's their messed up people. And so again, there is a solution. The main solution is to reach out positively and to put out positive information like we're advocating here, so people will have positive ideals and role models. L'chaim v'levracha.